Morning, folks. It's week 2 of our 4-part series. We're splitting this up between the Northern Hemisphere, of course, where it's starting to cool off. It's the off-season, so we're doing off-season breakfast to keep the fat oxidation up and the weight loss down. And then we're also going to be talking about in the Southern Hemisphere where the racing's hot. We're going to be talking about racing recipes. Last week, we did the marathon recipe, and today we're going to do the Ironman recipe. On the breakfast, we're going to be doing pancakes, a staple, of course, throughout the world. Well, it's been an awesome weekend of racing on Catalina Island with SFuels and also a number of the Ironman races all around the world. So congrats to all the athletes. Let's jump in, and we'll jump into the breakfast side of this first. We're going to talk about, like I said, off-season breakfast. Last week, we did how to optimize that, eggs and toast and coffee morning. Today, we're going to be talking pancakes. Well, if it's done wrong, this can be a disaster in terms of your blood sugar levels and being stable. In fact, that can be a 10 to 20 times difference in carbohydrates, depending upon how your recipe is pulled together for pancakes. Well, starting the day with, wildly fluctuating blood sugars just destroys the rest of the day in terms of trying to rein that in and to become more stable. By being wildly up and spiking up and coming down through the morning, you'll find that your subsequent day's meals will also have this, high carbohydrate desire and appetite. So what to do? Well, it's really not that complex because the problem is coming about from two key ingredients to a more traditional pancake recipe. Of course, we typically would use wheat flour and some sugar in pancake recipes. And this is, separate to, of course, the pouring on, particularly in this part of the world, in Canada and the US, the pouring on of maple syrup. Increasingly, there are hybrids of these syrups, which are highly doctored with high fructose corn syrup. But just the flour alone and the, put the syrup aside, looking at the flour and little sugar, in most pancakes, you'll find that they record, 30 grams, so if you're having two pancakes, 60 grams of carbohydrate just in 2 pancakes. If you look online at some of these pancake recipes from the fast food outlets, it's even higher. Well, that's as much carbohydrate that we would generally take in the middle of a race on the bike or on the run, 60 grams an hour. Well, the thing is, usually when you're having this for breakfast, you're not doing any exercise, 1. And 2, you're probably the intake, the speed and the velocity that you're bringing the consumption of those pancakes into the body is probably a 15-minute period. Usually when we would have 60 grams an hour on the bike or the run, or if you're in an ocean swim, etc., that would probably be more like what you're having over a full hour. And obviously with the metabolic, setup of exercise itself is having a dramatically different effect on how it's processing that amount of carbohydrate. So this is a problem to start this in the morning with that much carbohydrate, because you absolutely will crash within the hour after that morning meal. So what to do? It's an easy fix. There's really 3 simple tweaks you can make to get this right. Firstly, the wheat flour, shift that to an almond flour. Almond flour has, mostly the calories are coming from the fats, the healthy fats. It also has good fiber in it. And then switch your sugar that you're adding to the, when you're mixing the eggs and the flour, and there's typically some sugar added, typically pull that sugar out, switch it with SFuels Transform. This will give you the sweetness without sugar alcohols, without carbohydrate and sugars added. It will also add some healthy MCT fats in there to really support that, if you will, transformation from a high-carb meal into a low-carb, higher-fat meal. And then lastly, rather than pouring the syrups all over it, I'd like you to switch that for berries and pouring cream over the top of the berries in the pancakes. This will be 10 to 20 times less carbohydrate. Think 5 grams per pancake. It's not a lot. And this is still, though, high in calories in terms of supporting energy for, if you've had an early morning workout and you're going to do a second workout in the day, or just frankly energy for the day, whether it's at work or at school or what have you. These pancakes with the almond flour and the transform and the berries, it's still got a very solid dose of calories that's coming from healthy fats in the almonds and the SFuels transform. So give it a try. I think you'll find they're a real super shot. As we've seen athletes use this recipe. We'll put the recipe here in the video. You can take that and we'll make the link of it down below also. Okay, so now we're going to switch, like we said, to the Southern Hemisphere where racing's hot. And there is still plenty of running racing, of course, in the Northern Hemisphere, but triathlon is tapered off a little as things have got cooler here in the north. But plenty of it going on down south. The Melbourne race on the weekend, Ironman 70.3 there, and just a ton of racing throughout Asia and the Southern Hemisphere. Well, like last week when we talked about the marathon recipe, there are three key, objectives that each of these recipes are principled on or based on, and that is number one, to really train your metabolic flexibility so you can avoid bonking, have stable energy through the race. Secondly, that you're preserving glycogen through the front, half or the front 3/4 of the race to really support the latter part to finish strong. And this means you need to be able to efficiently burn fat to preserve the glycogen, lower lactate production so that you're able to finish strong. And then lastly, reducing the gut distress. And this is brought on, of course, by very high or overconsumption of carbohydrate, being if you're so dependent on carbohydrate. This recipe we're going to talk about today for Ironman is specific to those three things: having stable energy, finishing stronger, and reducing gut distress. So let's talk about it. There's three parts to this, as you can see on the screen. There's the night before, there's race morning, and during the race. Now, this recipe is really set up for athletes that do have good fat oxidation efficiency. And there's plenty of other videos we've talked about on improving that through aerobic zone 2 training and nutrition that you take in training, and also general lifestyle nutrition. So let's talk about the night before. Well, this is not overly different whether you're running a marathon or an ultra marathon or Ironman or a 70.3, an ocean swim, a gravel race, or what have you. The protein needs to be of a light, simply digested protein: fish, chicken, eggs, sushi, etc. The starches, you should absolutely add a little bit, a small serve of complex form. You really should have, the week of race week is lightly add a little more of complex form starches through the day. Think about cooked and slightly cooled. This helps to just balance the amount of resistant starch to non-resistant starch. Well, what does that mean? It means when it comes into the gut and into the blood, it's not going to dramatically spike blood sugars. So rice, sweet potato, good examples. Cook them up and then let it cool a little and then consume it. So the night before, have a little bit of that. That's fine. If you do want something a little sweeter for that night before, try some Greek plain yogurt, put some fruit in there, like berries particularly, and that should be sufficient. Obviously, avoiding alcohol, desserts and juices and sodas and ice creams, caffeine, obviously the night before. Now, the night before, you do want to use this period to prepare your nutrition that you're going to put into your front hydration system on your bike, and also your concentrate bike bottle on your bike, and then the bullets or whatever you're using to hold your gels for the run. So thinking about 60 grams per hour of carbohydrate, you take our Race Plus formula and you use a number of doses to get up to 60 grams, which is about 3 to 4 doses, depending upon where you sit, 45 to 60 gram per hour for our Race Plus drink product. And you want to concentrate that up relative to the number of hours that you're having on the bike. If you have a 5-hour bike ride, you're going to need 5 times 60 grams per hour, for example. Now, you want to be putting both that concentrate up in the 60 gram per hour Race Plus formula up into your front hydration like your aero bar hydration system, and also bottles that you're going to be putting either on the down tube or behind your seat, however you've got it set up on your bike. And then if you're going to be mixing up the Race Plus gel for the run, you put them into your gel holders, whether it's the SFuels bullets we have or someone else's storage system. Put the bullets inside, leave them on the table. Don't put them in the fridge. Just leave them on the table in ambient temperature. And then on race morning, you're going to be bringing all of that nutrition out to the race site. Now, one of the things you want to be doing also is on race morning is adding, you can do this the night before if you want, or on race morning, into that front hydration system, 2 of the SFuels Prime sachets. This is going to give you your caffeine, and we're going to talk more in a second about what to do that hour or 2 hours leading up to the race. But I want you to have 2 sachets of the SFuels Prime in your front hydration system, because it's going to be what you do prior to the start and in that first hour of the race that's going to upregulate your fat oxidation even further for the race. Again, it's going to help preserve glycogen for the latter part of the race. It's going to lower the amount of lactate being produced because you're going to be using more fat rather than glucose in your performance during the race. So let's get that into the front hydration system, have it there ready. Probably you're going to go out early in the morning to the transition zone, put all of your fuels on your bike or in your transition, in your bike bag and your run bags, etc. So settle that up. Now, the breakfast prior to heading out, you want to keep this easy, have a little bit of protein and a little bit of fat. Think eggs or the SFuels cereal with a little bit of milk or cream, or the SFuels Life Bar. You don't need a lot. This is all about just feeling satisfied and satiated. You don't need to try to carbo load race morning. That's the worst thing you can do. You're going to trigger your blood sugars, you're going to trigger an insulin response, and that's going to blunten your fat oxidation. Coffee and teas are fine, of course, whatever you preserve, or just plain water. Now, there's 1 or 2 hours before the race start. This is where you're going to basically take 1 sachet of SFuels primed into water, or if you want to mix it with our SFuels Train, that's fine also. And you're going to sip away on this in a throwaway, plastic bottle, and sip away at that between that hour pre-race and the go gun and the start gun. And really what you're trying to do here is mostly it's cognitive improving, cognitive readiness to embrace the run. But it's that caffeine and then the caffeine you're going to take in the first hour on the bike that's going to upregulate your fat oxidation. So important to get that first sachet in the hour before the start. And we'll talk soon about what to do as you come out of the swim and into T1. Now, the things to avoid on race morning, like I said, breakfast, keep it easy, keep it protein, a little bit of fat, but avoid the high carb cereals, breads, baking, juices, candy, and obviously gels and sports drinks. These are the things that are going to trigger a strong activation of blood sugar rise, and as a subsequent insulin response, blunting of fat oxidation. It's the last thing you want. Okay, the gun goes off. We're racing. We're getting through the swim. For most people in an Ironman, of course, this is an hour plus. So you're certainly going to open up most of those channels for glucose to come out of the blood and into the muscle cells, through that hour-long swim. And with that put in place, and you come into T1 and you jump on your bike, you're ready then to start consuming carbohydrate. So your front aero system, remember we said on the night before, you're going to prep to have the Race Plus in that front aero system. It's going to also have the 2 sachets of primed. This is what I want you to drink on that first hour of the bike. This is what's going to give you now 3 sachets of primed, and that's getting now into a level that will upregulate your fat oxidation. Some studies would suggest 20 up 27% we've seen in some studies of raising fat oxidation levels for the bike. Now, continue to consume your carbohydrate at 60 grams per hour, up to 60 grams per hour. Going any more than that, it's going to give gut problems. You're going to have oxidation problems. The body simply cannot oxidize more than 60 grams per hour of carbohydrate. If you're a good fat burner and you've been training that in training, you're going to be burning sequentially, simultaneously, both fat and carbohydrate very efficiently together. Now, one note to make here is that if your swim plus your bike is 6 hours, meaning say a 1 hour plus swim and a five plus hour bike, as you're 6+ hours into the race, plus your transition time. Caffeine only has a 6-hour half-life. So really at that 5.5 to 6 hours, you should be taking another 2 sachets of Prime to keep the fat oxidation level high. And to do that, either you can have it ready in a bullet in the back of your race suit that you could put in the back of your race suit in T1, or you can just leave it on your bike. And then as you get into T2, you basically just take the bullet or whatever you store it in, a small bottle, and you drink it. You can also have it in your T2 run bag, small bottle, small bullet with 2 sachets of primed, and you're going to hit that again before you head out onto the run. Now, when we get onto the run, if you've been taking through the bike 60 grams per hour and you've got a quality fat oxidation system, you don't need to continue to take 40 grams per hour on the run. 60 grams. You can bring that back a bit. Anywhere between 30 and 40 grams per hour is sufficient. It's going to be easier on the gut too. So don't be concerned about the lack of fuel and energy. It'll be fine if you're burning fat and you take in this 30 to 40 grams per hour of carbohydrate. And that will just, continue to sip that every 10 minutes as you go through the run, right through to the race finish. And, some folks like something to nibble on, to eat. And most aid stations in Ironman these days have bananas or these types of things, whatever you see fit. But at the same time, just be conscious of, there's a lot of mechanical movement, of course, and typically by then there's shades and grades of dehydration that can be the case for an Ironman athlete. So, just be careful how much you are taking into the gut and keep it into that, 30 to 40 grams per hour on the run. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, by all means, email us at support@sfuelsgolonger.com. We'd be happy to help you with those questions, or if you'd like some one-on-one time with us, we're happy to do that too. And like usual, for all of you racing around the world and training, all the very best, and as usual, go longer.